Good morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WAM Today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Thursday, 10th April 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. United States trade policies, particularly those of President Trump, have ignited a trade war with China, creating market instability and negatively impacting sectors like soybean farming. The conflict involves escalating tariffs, with China increasing retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods up to 84% and labeling U.S. trade policies as protectionist. President Trump initially paused tariffs for 90 days for most countries, but then significantly raised the tariff rate on China to 125%. He later indicated tariffs would drop to 10% for most countries for 90 days, but tariffs on China would jump to 125%. Some American businesses, however, see opportunities to increase market share in China amidst the volatility. China is more concerned that the trade war will lead to excessively cheap goods due to declining American demand. Washington's attempts to counter China's shipyards have sent shockwaves across the global shipbuilding industry. The U.S.-China trade war has reverberated across global markets. Falling crude oil prices, reaching a 4-year low, and declining copper prices in China indicate weakening economic confidence. Gold prices, conversely, have risen due to safe haven demand and central bank buying, reaching record highs. The S&P 500 initially surged in response to the tariff pause for most countries, but global markets crashed as China announced fresh tariffs on all U.S. imports. China's consumer prices have declined for 2 consecutive months, and producer deflation has worsened following increased tariffs. Companies like Walmart are maintaining their full-year outlook amidst trade uncertainty, while Amazon abruptly cancelled some orders from China after products had already been manufactured. Small factories in Guangzhou, China, are struggling to survive due to the tariffs. In response to U.S. tariffs, China has vowed to take resolute and forceful measures to protect its interests. Beijing issued a white paper outlining China's trade stance, marking the 3rd time since the trade war started in 2018. Chinese state media maintains a defiant stance amidst U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods, but adds the door is still open to talks. The trade war has also raised concerns about technological decoupling. The White House was expected to ban sales of high-performance AI chips to China, but is backing off. Microsoft abruptly cut services to a Chinese university and a genomics firm amid rising concerns about technological decoupling. President Trump says the TikTok deal is still on the table, but dependent on what happens with China. India is grappling with stock market volatility as investors worry about a potential global trade war and the impact of U.S. tariffs. These fears have caused losses for millions, especially those holding mid and small cap stocks. Indian drug manufacturers are concerned about potential U.S. tariffs on pharmaceuticals, their largest export market. Whether India will receive an exemption, given its vital role in supplying generic drugs to the U.S., remains uncertain. The Reserve Bank of India, RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra, addressed the repo rate outlook, fielding questions on possible interest rate cuts in response to President Trump's tariffs. RBI surveys show a reduction in price pressures for Indian households. To stimulate economic growth, India's central bank has reduced the policy rate to 6%, signaling potential further easing. Investors can find the Stock Market Holidays 2025 list on the BSSE or NSE websites. Japan witnessed a significant surge in its Nikkei index, climbing over 8% in response to President Trump's decision to temporarily halt the imposition of higher tariffs. This market rally mirrored similar positive movements across Asia-Pacific markets and on Wall Street. Adding to the economic and political dimensions, President Trump voiced his preference to prevent U.S. steel from being acquired by Japanese entities, highlighting potential tensions in trade and investment relations. Asian markets responded positively, to President Trump's pause on widespread tariff implementation. Japan's Nikkei index saw a strong opening, jumping 10%. Similarly, Seoul's Kospi experienced a substantial increase of 5.4%, while the Hang Seng index mirrored this upward movement, driven by the broader positive sentiment in the Asia-Pacific region. Despite this rally, consumers who frequent Asian supermarkets are bracing for potential price hikes due to already existing tariffs imposed by President Trump on goods sourced from numerous nations. Germany is on the cusp of a major political realignment as conservative and center-left parties prepare to unveil a coalition agreement aimed at establishing a new government, possibly with Friedrich Merz at its helm as chancellor. This potential change in leadership arrives at a critical juncture, aligning with President Trump's anticipated imposition of tariffs on European goods. In the United States, Trump's tariff plans are triggering a sell-off of U.S. Treasury bonds, thereby motivating investors to seek refuge in the stability of German bonds. Simultaneously, the Hanover Industrial Trade Fair is underway in Germany, showcasing the country's industrial prowess, while underscoring the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead amidst the current political and economic climate. European chocolate producers are grappling with rising costs due to poor cocoa harvests in West Africa, a situation worsened by viral diseases and changing climate patterns. Escalating trade war tensions have triggered a sell-off in European shares, reversing earlier gains. European stocks closed down, with the healthcare sector taking a hit, after President Trump's tariff impositions spurred retaliatory actions from China and the European Union. United States trade policies continue to reverberate, with President Trump's tariffs significantly altering international commerce and impacting domestic businesses. The imposition of tariffs has led to a decrease in car imports, exemplified by British automaker Land Rover's recent suspension of exports to the U.S., resulting in factory idling. Executives at Walmart have also publicly acknowledged that the new tariff environment is affecting their financial outlook. In other news, long tarmac delays at U.S. airports are becoming increasingly frequent. The extent of passenger rights during these delays is determined by both the length of the delay and the passenger's final destination. Argentina has secured a preliminary agreement with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for a $20 billion bailout package under the leadership of President Javier Milei, aiming to stabilize the nation's struggling economy. Shifting focus to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is facing increasing pressure over proposed amendments to the Firearms Act. These amendments, Bill C-21, initially aimed to ban assault-style weapons, but have sparked controversy over potential impacts on hunters and sport shooters, leading to heated debates in Parliament and across the country. In the latest from France, President Emmanuel Macron is pushing for further pension reforms despite widespread protests. The proposed changes aim to raise the retirement age, addressing concerns about the long-term sustainability of the pension system, but triggering significant social unrest and labor strikes. Moving across the Atlantic, Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is advocating for increased international cooperation to combat deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. Lula is urging developed nations to provide financial and technological support for sustainable development initiatives in the region, emphasizing the critical role of the Amazon in global climate regulation. Qatar initially sought a multi-billion-dollar stake in a luxury goods empire from Nicholas Puig. However, the deal later stalled. Puig claimed he could not access his shares. In other news, Qatar's wealth fund head aims to accelerate a deal for a stake in China Asset Management. Turning to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced scrutiny over foreign interference allegations. Intelligence reports suggested China attempted to influence the 2019 and 2021 elections. Trudeau maintained that the election outcomes were not affected. The opposition called for a public inquiry into the matter. Bahrain is gearing up to receive its inaugural Elm shipment as the newest entrant in the Middle Eastern L&M import market. Turning to Canada, the government plans to use revenue from retaliatory tariffs to aid affected workers and businesses, with the full impact still under assessment. Meanwhile, Chile foresees a potentially favorable outcome should President Trump levy tariffs on copper imports. Shifting to Egypt, a temperate start to the summer is forecast, potentially stimulating increased elm demand from Europe. In France, the country's strong military sector is seen as crucial for European defense independence, though it faces certain hurdles. Furthermore, luxury fashion brands are worried about potential EU tariffs on goods labeled Made in France and Made in Italy. Over in Iraq, the nation has entered into agreements with U.S. firms to enhance its power generation capacity. Despite the imposition of tariffs by Donald Trump, Mexico is actively pursuing exemptions, particularly for its automotive sector. Moreover, Mexico intends to launch a $3.10 billion tender for new power projects in May. Looking at OPEC, the organization and its allies, OPEC, are finding it difficult to manage compliance issues with its largest non-compliant member, even after warnings from Saudi Arabia. Regarding Pakistan, U.S. companies have shown interest in investing in the country's largely unexploited mineral resources. The Philippines sees President Trump's tariffs as a chance to strengthen its manufacturing sector as an alternative to China. In Saudi Arabia, Tesla's move into the market has effectively put an end to the funding secured controversy. South Africa is facing economic headwinds as the rand has depreciated to a record low against the US dollar. South Korea's Kospi index has declined, dropping more than 20% since its peak in July. Lastly, Taiwan's stock market has reached a record high, boosted by a temporary exemption from US tariffs. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on Wham Today.